essentially say, well, on the basis of I and the surrounding culture and the opinion makers decide what is the best way to conduct ourselves. To the degree that we parallel the way God says to do it, even if we don't believe there's a God there to say to do it. For example, if we say you don't steal, okay, that's God who gave that law. You don't steal. Just don't do it. All right. Then we'll function okay, individually and as a society. But to the degree that we go from, drift, reject the way God said to do it, act as though the universe is the only thing there is, and therefore we are gods because we are highest on the food chain. We're the rational animal. Well, the question becomes, how rational are we? What are we comparing it to? But at least compared to lower life forms, we are more rational than they are. Some would even argue that. Then we can make the rules. And the rules that we make, if they don't fit with the idea that, in fact, there is a God, and that, in fact, he said, live this way, don't live this way, and our rules go against that, then yes, we will be helping others to their own destruction. Best intentions we may have, but ultimately, the adjustment, our emotional well-being, will be a struggle. And indeed, if you look at the surveys, it seems as though there's plenty of them. The more you drift from the way God says to do it. Dr. A, we can't all agree on the way God says to do it. You know that. That's the problem. Well, let's just say the traditional morality given to us by Christ and his church and Scripture. Oh, yeah, Dr. A, Scripture, huh? Yeah, what do you do with God having whole nations being punished, including the kids and the animals? All right, I don't want to get into that right now, but there's ways to answer that. But in general, when God says this is a good way to live, this is why. For example, just a very, very, very simple thing. Don't have sex before marriage. All right, another culture says, what? That's really dumb. We're made for that. We're made to do that. How is that a problem at all? What is that? That is so constricting. God says, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Look what's happened. The out-of-wedlock birth rate has exploded. Research on poverty says the number one indicator of poverty is single moms. Research on violence, incarceration, lack of dads. Well, but we can have relations. We can be responsible before that. And God says, no, you don't understand. Here's what's going to happen. This is the kind of stuff that's going to happen. You never knew this was going to happen because you thought you were so wise that you knew exactly how to live. What would be the problem of jumping from bed to bed to bed to person to person to person? Why? We're adults. We can do what we want. Yeah, and then look at the byproducts. Look what's happening. And it can take a whole society down. Survey done not so long ago that says once the out-of-wedlock birth rate hits 25% or more, it collapses the family and all kinds of repercussions happen to society. So when God says, no, keep it in a lifelong commitment, that's not constricting. It's freeing. But if you don't believe in God, you do what you want. And then when you do what you want, you act as though you're God. And you ain't fit to act as God. So, walk with God, because he exists. The ultimate truth.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
All Catholic, all the time. This is the Guadalupe Radio Network, radio for your soul.
This is Dale Ahlquist with a Chesterton Minute. Have you ever noticed that sometimes it's hard to get along with your family? That sometimes the people in your family are downright uncongenial? Well, G.K. Chesterton says that is precisely why the family is so important, because it is often uncongenial. Every family is filled with the same problematical people that you find.
Would you like to keep up to date on all the exciting news, events, and information related to KATH 910 AM and the Guadalupe Radio Network? Like our quarterly share-a-thons, opportunities to volunteer, and special events like the car raffle, Spirit World Live, and the Summer Speaker Series events next year? Join our email list and we can send you occasional updates so you can stay informed. To begin getting emails from us, just email kath@grnonline.com and ask to be added to the list.
Loretto House Pregnancy and Parenting Resource Center is happy to announce that a Concert for Life featuring Father David Michael Moses and a group of talented priests from across the U.S. is coming to North Texas. It's Wednesday evening, August 7th, beginning at 7:30 p.m. at the Irving Convention Center. This concert is suitable and fun for all ages, and tickets are only $10. Come support the life-saving work of Loretto House. Tickets are on sale now at lorettohouseconcert.com.
Since 1991, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops has formally directed Catholics to avoid investing in companies that violate Catholic teachings in areas such as abortion and contraception. With an over $26 billion investment platform, Knights of Columbus Asset Advisors offers investments compatible with the teachings of our Catholic faith. Certified financial planner James Bell is an investment advisor representative with Knights of Columbus Asset Advisors. He can be reached at 817-608-7853 to learn more about Catholic investments. Sponsor of Guadalupe Radio Network. Knights of Columbus Asset Advisors is an SEC-registered investment advisor and serves all investors. Investing involves risk. More information on the web at kofcaa.com.
Thanks for listening to KATH 910 AM Frisco, Dallas, Fort Worth. Catholic radio for your soul in North Texas on the Guadalupe Radio Network. Heard also at grnonline.com and on your smartphone.
This is an EWTN Newslink. I'm Teresa Tomeo from Catholic Connection. A plane with freed American prisoners from Russia touching down on U.S. soil. Evan Driskovich and Paul Whelan arriving at Joint Base Andrews last night. They are among 16 people released from Russian detention after negotiated prisoner swap. And the bishops of Venezuela.
Welcome to Back to the Father, a show about the journey of life focused on our final end, which is God Himself, our loving Father. And now, here's your host, Dave Palmer.
Welcome to Back to the Father on this Friday afternoon. It is August 2nd, 2024. I'm Dave Palmer along with Cecil Anderson, and this is a program we've been doing for a number of years now, and it's for the last year or so. It's been at this time, and we've been a little inconsistent because things happen on Fridays and we're not always able to get on, but we thank you for tuning in. We thank you for viewing, and today's going to be kind of an interesting show because we're going to continue what we were talking about last week. We put two shows together back to back. I'm so proud of us. And last week we were talking about the attributes of God, and there's 7 of them that are mentioned at the beginning of the Summa Theologia. And we got through like 2.5 of them. And so today, during this hour, we are going to try to get through the rest of them. And rather than put the text on the screen and read Aquinas out of the Summa, which I think is a lot of fun, can get a little dense. So we're just going to talk about the questions that St. Thomas Aquinas asks about these attributes of God in the Summa Theologia, okay, the 7 attributes. And I also want to say that we're not able to put our PowerPoint slides on the screen today. So this is what you're going to have. Okay. You're going to have me talking to you. And what I've also done, and Sissel is working behind the glass there, and she's monitoring the various social media platforms. I also have on my monitor to the left here the four of, I think, the five of the social media platforms that we're on. I've got YouTube. I've got Facebook, I've got, let's see, Twitter or X or whatever, and then Instagram as well. And so,
do you want to know we're on something else today?
Oh, is that Rumble?
No.
Oh,
make
what?
a guess, though. Make a guess.
Oh, gosh. Is there another platform?
There's another platform, and I think this is the one that's going to make us go viral.
Really? Are you serious?
Yeah,
Have
for
I
sure.
even heard of it?
Yes, you definitely have heard of it.
What is it?
TikTok.
Oh, TikTok. We're on TikTok?
We're on TikTok right now.
So I can go to, TikTok.com and...
I honestly have no idea, but I can see it right now.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to have some fun today, okay? We're going to see what would be a goal of like the most people on all the platforms that we have peeking out today. You might think like, oh, go for 10,000 or something like that, but it's going to be a lot more modest than that. A lot more.
We just like to keep things modest around here.
Yeah,
we're not too fancy.
We don't want to be too fancy. We don't want to get big heads.
Yeah, because the thing is, it'll be less organic. You know what I mean, Dave? Like, if we have so many people watching us right now, we're gonna lose that small
that kind of indie feel
connection with all the people watching. Yeah,
that's
for
right.
sure.
We don't want to get too big. Okay, that's so. Right now, by my count, 3 people on YouTube. We got like 4 or 5. One person just dropped off.
As soon as you said that, they're
Facebook,
like, goodbye.
We've got a few on Twitter, and is anybody on TikTok?
I'm not gonna lie, Dave. TikTok is confusing me because it keeps saying that people join, but they last a second. We've had a total of 57 different viewers, but no one has stayed for more than 2
on
seconds.
This program already?
Yeah.
Seriously,
I think TikTok pops up the lives a lot more. I honestly don't understand how it works, but if you actually came and you stay for a little bit, say hi.
Yeah, let us know who you are. I always make fun of I don't want to call them voyeurs because that sounds kind of creepy. You're not voyeurs, but the people that just kind of watch and it's okay. Don't run off. I don't know who you are anyways, but if you just kind of say, hey, this is Fred, I'm in Minnesota, or this is Julie, I'm in Houston, or what have you, okay? But let's have some fun with it, and we want to get your comments. We want to know what's on your mind as we talk about these attributes of God according to St. Thomas Aquinas. So I'm going to throw out my first question for you, and do you know or do you remember the attributes that we went over last week? Now, the only person in my view right now is Sissel, and so when you don't answer on social media...
You leave it all up to me.
I got to go to the only other person I can see is Sissel, and this is, what would be cool, Sissel, is because I have to kind of toggle through these different platforms. Would it be possible, and not today necessarily, can you put them in little boxes on your screen so you can see them all at the same time?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
You could definitely do that.
All right.
By the way, we have Paula saying, hi, you know who I am on Facebook.
Yes, I do. That's my dear wife, and so thank you. And so I want to have more than just my wife listening or watching.
We're
on,
you know what? Guys, there's so many different platforms. I'm having to figure things out because Twitter, we have like 3 or 4.
6 people
on Twitter. We are very small on Twitter, and I think we might be set to the vertical, so I'll have to fix that for next week.
I don't even know what that means.
It means that we're small.
Set for the
vertical
phone?
we're set for the vertical rather than the horizontal. So we'll fix that for next week. But
all right, and so I don't mean to obsess about the numbers. I just trying to have a little fun with this. Okay, so what we're gonna do, because I don't have the graphics today, we're gonna try to fix that for next week. But if you remember, no pressure, Sissel, okay? Or Paula, she's my wife, and she's watching right now, and how awesome of her to do that. Do you remember the 2 attributes we went through last week on Back to the Father? There's 7 of them. I did 2, and then we had the one question of the Summa before he got to the 3rd that was kind of meaningful. Do you remember what they were, the first 2?
I know simple. God is simple.
Okay, God is simple. Very good. Yes.
That's like the first one I can remember. The second, Oh, I'm trying to remember what
Do you remember what the other ones are? Okay.
What were the other ones?
And whenever I look away, can you comment on Twitter?
Yeah, I am open on the chat right now. I said
one
Friday.
person shared it.
Well, thank you.
Oh, that's probably you, right?
I don't think it was me. I don't use my Twitter that much.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this, and I won't keep looking at all that, because that'll be Sissel's responsibility, and she'll let me know if anybody comments and asks any questions or anything like that. But let's have some fun with it. I'm of the opinion that we don't talk about this kind of stuff enough. And when you dig into the Summa and you see not only the brilliance of somebody like St. Thomas Aquinas, but what you see is a very curious mind. You have a guy that doesn't just say, for example, in the Blessed Trinity, oh, okay, 3 persons, 1 God, that's awesome. No, he digs into it. He asks a lot of questions. How can this be? How can you possibly have 3 persons in 1 God and 1 nature and 1 essence? And his mind goes a lot of different directions. He even asks some questions that are like, wow, I never thought about that. Like, for example, I'll give you a couple of examples, then we'll get on with the content here. When in the section on the knowledge of God, which we haven't gotten yet, we'll probably get to in a few weeks here, he asks, he says, can God know evil things? Okay, it's a good question. Can God know things that are not? I mean, like, if there's can he know things, and could God have created a better world than he did? Can God make something not to have happened that did happen? These are the kind of things that, do you ever think about stuff like this? Thomas, I thought, had so much, he thought about God so much, and he loved God so much. It's like when you're in love, when you have a spouse, like I do, and you're curious, and you ask a lot of questions, and you want to know what they're thinking about and what's on their mind and what makes them tick. Okay, Aquinas didn't have a wife. He was a celibate Dominican priest, but he had God, and he was madly in love with God, and so he asked a lot of questions. And so this, today is the attributes of God, and as Sissel mentioned, the first one is simplicity. This means things like he doesn't have a body. His essence is the same as his nature. The essence and existence is the same thing. It's just that God is, and all these things that we attach to him, like not attach, but the things that he is, like intelligence and will and simplicity and eternity and infinity. It's all one. It's all the same in God, because he just is. He is all at the same time. But we have to kind of divide it up, because it makes it easier for us to understand, because God is so much above us in so many ways. But anyway, so if you have a fascination with God and you want to go through some of these attributes with me today, well, let's get right into it. And I'm just gonna. Do you want to? Do it looks like.
Yes, I have a
we got. Do you know who this is?
Becky?
The Becky. This is so cool.
No, I don't know who.
Becky is Patrick's speech therapist.
Oh, so sweet. That's awesome. Yeah, it said
cool.
that I was going to read that comment. Yes, she's saying that she is
just talking about our passions. Okay, interesting.
So we all know what Dave Palmer's passion is.
Which is interesting, because God doesn't have any passions. Although I heard a talk one time of a guy at the UD ministry conference, and he was arguing that God did have passions, because he's like, God is so much, we are so much like God that how could we deny God to have passions? Love is a passion. Of course, God can love, but he doesn't love in a passionate way. And I don't mean like sexually, but I just mean like he doesn't love and have feelings, so to speak, right? Okay, so let's get into it. And when we left off last week, we were talking about the goodness of things in general, okay? Because we were about to get to the third attribute of God, which is... By the
way, Becky is the spelling practitioner, is what she
Yeah. What did I say?
You said... I think speech or something
speech,
like something
okay,
like that.
Yeah, spelling practitioner, and that's a whole interesting thing in itself, is the whole spelling phenomenon that's going on with special needs, especially nonverbal, autistic, and special needs kids. And so she's one of the very few that does it here in North Texas. And so we're very happy to have Patrick learning from her, right?
Yes, definitely.
And all right, so Becky, thanks. Glad you're with us, and hope you can learn a little bit about St. Thomas Aquinas during the course of this hour. All right, so we talked in question number 6 about, question number 5 was about goodness in general. And do you remember why after doing simplicity of God and perfection of God, rather than going straight into the goodness of God, which is one of his key attributes, Thomas spends a whole question talking about goodness in general. And as I explained last week, it's because Aquinas wants us to be able to relate to God through the things that we experience in the world, right? Because remember, he said basically goodness and being are the same thing, right? So that which exists is good without exception, because if God created something, it's going to be good. And so goodness and being are the same thing. So we are surrounded by all this goodness, all this awesomeness, and we can relate that to God, okay, because God is goodness himself. So I think it was brilliant the way that he lined that up in the Summa. So then we go into question number 6, and this is the goodness of God. And Thomas is going to ask a number of questions. The first one, Article 1, whether God is good. How do you think he answers that? I'm kidding.
I really, actually, I think
Take
this
a
one could be
wild guess.
we could totally get into this. I think he said yes.
Okay, and what makes something good? Okay, how do you define goodness? What's good as opposed to not good, right? What makes something good? Aquinas would say it's something that's desirable. If you desire something, it's good, because good is an object of either the sensitive appetite or the will. Okay, so if you will something, it's because it's good. You would never will something because it's bad. Okay, nobody ever desires anything that's evil. You may desire something that's a lesser good that by comparison is evil, but you would never desire an evil, right? Article number 2, whether God is the supreme good. Okay, the supreme good, and of course, you know the answer to that one is yes. He's the supreme good. He is he's not only good, he is goodness. Okay, just like he is intelligence and he is will. Paul and I don't know if Paul is still here or not, we talk about God's will a lot. Okay, the divine will movement. Luisa Picaretta, my wife, is a great devotee of that particular devotion within the church, and so we talk a lot about the divine will. Article number 3. I wish you could see this picture because it's so
Which
funny.
one isn't? Let's see if I can try to find it.
Article 3. If you can see this picture, this one's worth putting up.
Okay, I gotta find it though.
Okay, you put
what
it up.
What slide number are you on?
It's slide number 7.
Oh, I got it. I got it. Hold up, y'all. You're gonna get it. 1 second, everybody.
Okay.
Look,
So
I got it.
All right, you got it. So I love this picture. This little girl. Well, how would you describe that look in her face?
I honestly have no idea. I don't know. She's like half doing like a goofy face, half doing like a puppy eyes face, and half doing like I want to traumatize you with my eyes.
Well, the question is whether to be essentially good belongs to God alone. And when I first read that, I thought, no, because we're good. We're good, and and we just already learned that if something's created by God, it's good. But he comes down here saying that God is the only one that's essentially good. And and I don't have the notes in front of me, but I think he's probably getting at the fact that, we are good through our participation of God, and we mirror his goodness. And so essentially and supremely, God is good. I think that's how he's going to answer it, okay? Now, the next picture, which I don't know if you will see or not, says whether all things are good by the divine goodness. And I have a picture of a snake here, okay, sticking his tongue out, staring at you. I love snakes. I gotta admit, I even love the venomous ones. And I assure you, this snake that I have up on the screen, are you gonna be able to get this one on,
I got
Sissel?
it on briefly. Although Twitter and Instagram are not.
Believe me, this is a venomous snake. Okay, because if the face looks like that, Yeah.
Personal practice, if I see a snake, I just assume it is, in fact, venomous because I'm really bad about remembering
should never do that.
I'm not going to do anything to it. I'm just going to go away because I'm not going to remember fast enough what are the little poetry rhymes about, like, why, like, what is it, the different colors?
Poems.
They're little things. Little
red
sayings.
touch black, friend of Jack. Red touch yellow, kill a fellow.
Yeah, see, I'm going to get it all messed up. So it's better for me to just take a few steps back.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing as long as you don't kill it, because most people just kill every snake they see, and that's.
I like that you think that I would even attempt to kill a snake. I'm just going to be like, hey, nice to see you, and goodbye.
Yeah. So, okay, are all things good by by divine goodness? Okay, I want one person out there in social media land to take a guess at this. Okay, are all things good by the divine goodness? Now, I mentioned a moment ago that God is the only one that's essentially good. It almost seems like a contradiction. I don't know if anybody's going to comment on this. We've got a pretty good number of people that are watching on YouTube and Facebook.
Repeating the question in the chat so people can.
Okay, how's TikTok doing?
Dave. We're gonna have fun recapping TikTok. The couple things. One. We have a lot of people popping in and out.
Okay,
a lot
on
of people
TikTok.
On TikTok. A lot of people.
Like,
however,
define a lot.
Like in close to 100.
Okay.
But
and then
the
they're
thing
quickly
is, but
this
the
guy's
thing
talking
is
about the
we're
Summa.
also very, very quickly discovering that TikTok might be the worst for attention span.
Yeah, I could guess that.
We're up to 88 people have jumped in.
And off.
View and in and off, and I think it's really funny. We're just showing Instagram's usually like that. Two people kind of jump in and out of Instagram. Twitter's holding strong though. Twitter's holding up the team right now.
Okay,
so if you're on
that's
Twitter,
right.
say hi to us, please.
Twitter was always the one that I thought was the least. I'll tell you what. If you're watching on Twitter, throw us a bone and just say, hey, this isn't just like Twitter, showing people that aren't there. Let us know you're there. And okay, so I'm just trying to keep this picture of the snake on longer. Okay, are all things good by divine goodness? And again, this seems like it almost contradicts the previous one, because God is essentially good. We participate in God's goodness, but He says we do have our own goodness. Okay, so we're not only good because of God, but God created us good. We are good. Every single one of us, regardless of who we are. And so, remember, we had learned, and we're actually going to get to this in a moment with infinity, so I won't get ahead of myself. The next question in the Summa has to do with the infinity of God. And if you think of infinity, that is a wild thing to consider, because have you ever just do a little brain exercise right now and think of infinity, because that means everywhere at the same time. Okay, we are in one place at one time, and as we have talked about before on this show, the angels are in one place at one time. Even though they don't have bodies, they can only apply their intelligence or apply their will to one place at one time. Otherwise, they'd be infinite. But can you imagine just like some being everywhere at the same time? It's so beyond the capacity of us to really even kind of go there in our mind that it's just like, whatever. I mean, I just can't figure this out. So what are the questions that Aquinas asks about infinity? Okay, well, here's the first one. He says whether God is infinite. All right.
That's a pretty good, straightforward first question.
I always love that. Like if you go to the sacraments, sacrament of the Eucharist, the first question is going to be, is the Eucharist a sacrament? Is confirmation a sacrament? And you're like, yeah, I think I got that one. Aquinas, I think so. Any updates? Or
I'm looking. Paula just commented a moment ago about, can you explain the question better? And I don't know if she's talking about the goodness one.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing about moving so fast.
Yes.
Can you be more specific, Paula?
Yeah, let us know which one, so we can definitely do that though.
Okay, so let's see. Oh, this is kind of cool. I'm kind of enjoying this. And
hey, I'm thinking by the end of this show, we're definitely going to be over 100 of people popping in for 2 seconds on TikTok. You know what? We have to make sure that every 2 seconds is like a gem, like an absolute gem. That you
Hi, TikTok. Hi, TikTok. Hi, TikTok.
Win a free iPad.
Somebody, and I don't mean to stereotype, but I always think of TikTok people as being really young, 13, 14, 15. It may not always be the case. I don't personally do a lot on TikTok, but I know people like my daughters that do, and I know it's a young person thing. So if you're a young person and you're there, just say, hey, Sally or Fred or Joe or Hank, and I'm 15 and I'm watching this. That'd be kind of fun. Okay, so all right, so is God infinite? Yes. The next one, Article 2 on infinity, whether anything but God can be essentially infinite. And I think you can figure the answer to that one is no. They can't be infinite. And then there's a question, Article 3, whether an actually infinite magnitude can exist. Can you imagine, okay, just again, go into the thought bubble here. Can you imagine an infinite magnitude? That would be something physical that's infinite at the same time. Because the moment that happened, I think we would all die because it would have to take up every space at every moment, and there would be no space for us, right? So it'd just be like, and it's such a strange thing to even think about, is something physical being also infinite. It'd be like everywhere, right? And it'd be physical. So clearly that can't happen, right? But then the next article, he says, can an infinite multitude exist? And if you remember when you were in math class, I guess what was the one that has all like the little arrows and it goes to infinity and all that? Did you learn that?
Oh gosh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and you remember, the arrow and it has a point, and then it has the little arrows and it goes to
geometry?
infinity. I think that would be geometry. Is that right? Yeah.
I did not study math in college.
It wouldn't be calculus. Math. But anyways, Thomas, and I don't know if I can explain it well enough, but he doesn't believe that an infinite multitude can exist. Because if you think about it, it just never stops. It just keeps on going and going and going. And it almost boggles your mind to think that something just keeps on going, and it never stops. And so he said, I think the reasoning is that if something were to begin, it has to have an end. Other than, of course, God would be an exception. God's the exception to all the rules, right? And even we, and I don't want to get ahead of myself because we're going to get into eternity here in just a moment. But, okay, question number 8 is an interesting one because he's going to talk in question number 8 about the existence of God in things. Because if you think about it, if he is non-material, he's pure spirit, and he's also infinite, that means he's everywhere, right? So he's here, he's there, he's everywhere, right? But what does that say about us? If he's everywhere, how does that affect our relationship with him, right? And so that's why Thomas, again, is taking a little stop before he goes on to his next one, and he wants to know how can God be everywhere and not in us, in our essence? And I think that's where kind of the motivation for pantheism comes on, because people think, well, if God's everywhere, then he's in everything and everything's God, and therefore, it's all God. The whole world is God. Okay, so a little break here, and let's see how things are going. YouTube, you're being particularly quiet today. Everybody on YouTube is just like, I'm not talking. Sorry, it ain't gonna happen. Facebook has been the most active, so thanks to that. And Twitter, you're there. Twitter's like rocking.
Yeah, I think because the recent change that now streaming is like you have to pay to do streaming. So I don't know. I feel like there's maybe more dedicated people, on streaming. I don't fully understand how it works. I've never understood Twitter, but that's okay. But I'm really glad that you are here joining us today. So,
I'm intrigued by the whole TikTok thing, though.
We're up to 91.
91. That just means people like popped in and are like, what's this going on?
People stay for a little bit. I think sometimes. So we did for a while have a couple people who actually were hanging on and saying hi to us, which we're grateful for. But we'd love it if you said hi back too, and if you have any questions about the material that we are talking about, because maybe this is not the average thing you find on TikTok.
I don't think so.
I was going to say, we're going to have to start doing TikTok dances now, Dave.
I don't think so. No.
But no, it's a little different. So
then they'll even stay less time. If we start dancing.
No.
All right, the existence of God in things. First question, is God in all things? Okay. Is God in all things? All right. How would you answer that? And Sisso is saying, please, somebody out there, start answering some of these questions.
I have a comment from Paula.
Okay.
She says, I think what she's saying is he is in everything by virtue of his will sustaining all things.
Okay. Yeah, that would be right, because God sustains all things. I think Thomas calls it his power. And so he keeps everything in being, and he kind of moves all things, right, to some degree, which is a very fascinating thing, because if you're thinking about God moving something, like if you see a bird fly by, or, a mouse runs across the floor or something like that, you got to say, well, God's moving that, right? Because they don't have free will, they don't have their own volition, and so God's moving it. It's very interesting to think about that God is behind that, but God also moves us, okay? And if we're drawn to the good, and God is goodness, and we're drawn to God through even the lesser things that we're drawn to on a daily basis, well, then that means to some degree God is moving us, okay? But then you also throw in free will, and it gets really interesting, because when does free will start and end, and when does just divine providence kind of moving things to their final end start? And that's where the whole predestination debate comes in, right? So God is in all things through his power, and as Paul has said, also through his will as well. And article number 2 is God everywhere. Okay, and again, same answer. Yes, he's everywhere through his power, through his intellect, through his will. He is in all places. Is God everywhere by essence, presence, and power? Yes. And then the next one, whether to be everywhere belongs to God alone? Yes. Okay, so nothing else is everywhere. All right, on to question number 9 of the Summa, the immutability of God. The immutability of God. Can you imagine not changing? Do you realize, we are constantly changing every single second of the day. And can you even imagine what it would be like to not change? It's so foreign to anything that we experience. We're always changing. There's change everywhere all the time. What would it be like to be immutable? Because I think even in heaven, we're not immutable, because still in heaven, we're worshiping God, we're enjoying God, and so there's a certain, and he's going to get into this in a moment, it's in eternity, that there's a different kind of time in heaven, but all right, so first question is whether God is altogether immutable, and of course, yes, that is the case, and I love what he says here, because if God could change, that means either his first state or his second state would be better or worse, because otherwise, why would you change? Why do we move? Why do we eat? Why do we travel? Why do we have children? Why do we make friends? Okay, it's because we're trying to get to some kind of higher level of perfection, okay? Anybody that moves, okay, at the end of this show, I'm going to walk from here to my office. The only reason I do that is because I think there's a greater degree of perfection in there than here. Otherwise, I'd stay here, right? So if God changed, then he wouldn't be perfect. And you can see how all these kind of, they all lock in together. And as soon as you take one of them out, like, for example, the guy I said did the talk on passions. If God has passions, then that means God changes. Because if I'm happy one moment and then sad and then excited and then, mourning, then I've changed. And as soon as you introduce that into God, he's no longer immutable, and he's no longer perfect, and he's no longer simple, and the whole house of cards falls down. And so all of these are really built upon each other, and they all go together because God is, right? And so you can't pick and choose which attribute of God you like and which one you want to get rid of, right? Number 2 article, whether to be immutable belongs to God alone. And that is yes. Okay, and I have a really cool picture. I don't know if you can put
Which
this
slide
one up.
number is it?
It's slide 21, and it's. I'll just kind of pause here for a moment as Sissel gets that one up.
Give me a minute to
And,
find it. It is lost, but it shall be found.
Let's see.
By the way, I'm having a heck of a lot of fun watching the different usernames on TikTok pop up.
Oh, really?
They're very amusing.
Can you mention any of them?
One was just like H-U-H.
That's pretty appropriate for Thomistic philosophy.
Honestly,
it's like, huh?
I was like, at first I thought it was a comment of someone just going, huh?
I'm trying to figure out, okay, while you're doing this,
Yeah.
so TikTok, it's streaming, and people are like
Yeah,
scrolling, and they pop on
a
it, so
live
they might just be
video.
scrolling
They
through,
literally
right?
are just like probably going from video to video, and then all of a sudden it's our live stream, and then they're just like, "Why is this dude talking about a philosophy? Well, that's weird," and moving on. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
It's like trying to stop speeding cars on the
Exactly.
freeway. You know, it's like, stop, will you just stop for 2 seconds? Well, yeah, they're just flying by, and they're like, the average 13-year-old is like, I don't think so.
Hey, if you
Okay.
stop for more than 2 seconds or 0.10 second, say hi. Please say hi. We'd appreciate it.
Come on, throw Grandpa a bone here, will you, kids? Come on.
Interestingly, I do think that for random aside, TikTok, I did find the picture, by the way, but TikTok, I find you either have very, very young people who are really into it, and I think older people as well.
Oh, is that right?
I think there's
older, define old.
Okay. Why
Be
is there
careful.
people?
Be careful.
I would say that there actually are a good number of people your age and older that are
really?
actually into TikTok as well.
Now, why would that middle category not
I
be
am
there?
not sure. Maybe because it's just a little too busy with life to care that much about. You know what I
Got
mean?
better things to
like,
do, yeah.
I don't know. I just find that it's really young generation and then sometimes like older generation. That's just what I've seen. The people who are popular on it's kind of a mix.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
well, I don't.
I'll stop philosophizing.
I don't want to talk about any particular person that happens to be viewing right now, like my mom. But I will say, my mom, she's all about the social media, and
she's good at that's great.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I'm gonna have to go to her for
it
some
was
lessons.
so funny. My mom came over a couple weekends ago to our house, and we were sitting around Friday night. Me, my mom, my Paula, my 2 daughters, and at one point we caught ourselves because all 5 of us were on our phones.
It's bad.
None of us
It's
were
so
even
awful.
talking to each other. I mean, ranging from 15 years old to, well,
No,
my
everyone
mom's
does
not
it.
15 years old. Let's just say that. So, and so anyways, but this is one time when I don't want to criticize social media, because if I did, well, it'd kind of be counterproductive, because we want you to be paying attention to what we're doing right now.
Sorry, side journey. Like one day we should do, Dave, like the philosophy of social media or something.
Yeah, the
So,
philosophy of TikTok,
the
right?
philosophy of TikTok.
Okay, so did you get that picture?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so number 21, it's kind of a beautiful picture because it's kind of like young hands holding on to old hands. And when you think about it, mutability is kind of sad in a way, because we're born and then you get old and you have to say goodbye to people, and people die and your pets die, and so this is all part of mutability, change, and relations come and go and friends come and go, and there's always something changing. And so how I think we almost have this desire for immutability. I know I've used the comparison before about having young kids and watching them grow old, and you grow up and you're just like, oh, I just want them to stay kids. It's such a beautiful age, So anyways, that's kind of a cool picture there. All right, we move on now to the penultimate attribute of God, and that is is that right?
Is it in fact the penultimate?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Just making sure.
yeah.
Okay,
This is
perfect.
the penultimate. There's
Can't say penultimate when it's not penultimate.
no,
I'm
I'm pretty sure this is penultimate, and this is the eternity of God, and this is timelessness, and the relationship between change and time is really, really, I guess, tight. As things change, time goes by. As time goes by, things change, and so it's a very interesting type of relationship. And so anything that changes is going to be inside of time. And that's why God both at the same time doesn't change and also is outside of time. And so his immutability is connected to his eternity, which is connected to his simplicity and his perfection and his goodness. And but time is such an important part of our lives. So here's the definition of eternity according to St. Thomas Aquinas. He says the simultaneously whole and perfect possession of interminable life. Okay.
Oh, that made such sense.
Say that
Thank
20
you.
times,
Thank
okay?
you.
The simultaneously whole and perfect possession of interminable life. Okay, so God possesses all time within himself in an instant. It's so wild to think of God being able to do that, knowing everything, inside and outside. And I've also heard that really, in many ways, we live in one moment, because if you think about the past and just think of something, Sissel, from your past, and just say it out loud. Something, don't make like, just something that you remember, like third grade, or you were homeschooled.
Okay. So that means I don't remember.
Okay, think about one thing in particular from your past. You got it? And what is it?
Oh, I remember for our, you mentioned school, so it made me think of it. For when we entered kindergarten, homeschool kindergarten, my mom always made these this German like cone thing full of school supplies. I don't remember how to say it because it's a German word, but yes, we would wake up early in the morning on our first day of school, get all of our fun new school supplies, and would eat bagels.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a very specific memory. Okay, thank you. So the point is that even though that happened another time, that memory just became present. Okay, so in a sense, this is where we can participate a bit in the eternity of God. And let's say I think about, tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up and do yard work with Patrick. I'm sure that's what my tomorrow is going to be, right? And then tomorrow night I'm going to go out with Paula and some friends. Well, I mean, I've now taken the future and I've brought it to the present. And so the past, the present, the future, even with us, to some degree is all in one. But the only difference is I don't know exactly what that's going to look like tomorrow. And the past did happen at a different time. But anyways, that's kind of a cool thing.
It's giving me very much... I feel like there's a couple episodes of Doctor Who that goes into a concept like this, and it just is reminding me of it, of like drawing things from the past.
Was Doctor Who British?
Yes. Doctor Who is a British show, yes.
What was the name of that little blue closet?
Oh, it's the TARDIS. The
yeah.
TARDIS, yeah. If
Paula is still watching, she did a piece of furniture for my... I don't know if you saw it on Facebook for my sister.
It's kind of a TARDIS blue, isn't it?
Did you see it?
Yeah, it looks like a kind of a TARDIS color.
And Paula, of course, being growing up in Northern Ireland, would have been very familiar with that show. And you being an old soul that knows everything about everything that happened in the past. That's so funny that you would bring up Doctor Who because
I watch some Doctor Who, not all Doctor Who. It's still ongoing right now.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is currently ongoing. So I've watched some of it. It's an interesting show. It has some moments.
Yeah.
It's gotten a little bit.
Isn't it kind of creepy?
It can have. There are a few episodes that are very creepy. Sometimes it's pretty lighthearted though. So
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
All right. Next article says whether God is eternal. Yes. Okay. Moving on. Number 3, whether to be eternal belongs to God alone. He always asks these questions. Is God immutable? Yes. Is he the only one that's immutable? Yes. That kind of stuff. And so article number 4, whether eternity differs from time. And of course it does, but time is just a factor of change, right? And then have you ever heard, Sissel, of aviternity?
I'm sorry. So A and like as in the letter A and V, or is it how is it spelled?
It's AEVITERNITY.
Then no, I have not.
Aviternity is something that has a beginning but not an end. Okay, like our souls, for example, like angels, because angels aren't eternal because they were created at a particular time, but they go on forever as long as God's holding them in existence. But that's the thing is like, what about something that kind of on one end is eternal, but on the other end isn't, because we did start in time. So there's this thing called aviternity that St. Thomas Aquinas talks about. And then Article 6, whether there is only one aviternity, and I quite honestly forget what he says about that. All right, so finally, the last attribute of God, and then we're going to open it up for questions if anybody is out there. I think if people have been this quiet this long, I don't think the questions are going to come pouring in at the end.
Maybe they will. Maybe they will.
Maybe they're just taking it all in. We want one person from TikTok to ask one question,
or
okay?
just to say hi.
As you're scrolling by, okay, and you just stop and say, okay, I'm gonna throw this guy a bone. I'm gonna ask a question. It'd be nice if somebody young out there was on TikTok. You might want to ask a question. All right. So the final and 7th attribute of God is His unity, His oneness. Okay. So how do we know that there's only one God? And in this particular article, that when he talks about it, he's going to give a few reasons. And let's see. And what he says, okay, well, the first one says, does one add anything to being? And that's just Thomas geeking out on philosophy.
I was
so
going to say.
does one
no.
add?
Oh, no, Aquinas, why?
I know. Why, Thomas? I'd love to, did you ever hear the famous story about him at the royal court at the dinner with, it was like the Roman, gosh, who was it? It was like Louis I don't remember which Louis it was, but it was like the emperor, the king at the time of Aquinas, and Aquinas was at a dinner with him, and Aquinas wasn't a real loquacious guy. He was called the dumb ox because he didn't talk a whole lot, but the story goes, and G.K. Chesterton tells this story in his book called The Dumb Ox, that Aquinas was kind of sitting there, and even at dinner, people are chit-chatting and having small talk, and he's thinking about things like, are the one and the many opposed to each other while other people are eating their dinner, and all of a sudden, he lifts up his hands, true story, and he pounds on the table, and everybody stops, because even at the time of, when he lived, everybody knew he was a genius, and he was very, famous even in his own time. And he said something, everybody looks at him, everything draws very, very, very quiet. And he says, "That'll settle the Manichaeans."
Yes, I've heard that.
Have you heard that story?
Yeah.
And you know what the king did? Instead of saying, "Get that man out of my court,"
disturber of the peace.
Yeah. You know what the king did? Yeah, great story. Assuming this is true, as it's related.
Did he just say, "Tell me what you mean," or did he just say, "Get this man some paper to write down"? Or
exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what he did.
Which one?
He said, which one?
I said two things.
No, he said, get him some paper.
Oh.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's what the king did.
Hey, there's a good, strong parallel to, Dave. Sorry, I bring in all the random pop cultural references, but there's a Avengers movie where Captain America's coming back from being on hiatus for a bit, and Black Panther goes, "Get that man a shield," because that's what he's known for as a shield, and that's kind of, I feel like you could make a parody of that, but with Aquinas and this king, and the king being like, "Get this man,
man a piece of paper."
That's that's what he needs right now.
Right.
That's hilarious. Sorry, everyone in the comments is like that.
Probably the rest of that dinner, people are like, everything okay? Aquinas?
Everyone's just staying a few feet back.
And then he would just be scribbling down. But most of the time he had other people writing for him because his mind was so fertile, and he was writing 3 or 4 books at the same time. It was just, imagine the output that he did in his life was just absolutely phenomenal. I have a hard time reading everything that Aquinas wrote in a lifetime, and I've lived a lot longer than he did, much less write it. Huh? Okay, so finally, article number 3, whether God is one, and the main reasons why Aquinas proves that God is one, because if there was more than one God, one of them would be more perfect than the other. Otherwise, they'd be exactly the same. And if you have 2 exactly the same things, then you really only have one thing, right? Because if 2 things have nothing different from each other, they would even have their own being the same as each other, and so they're one thing, right? And then he also goes back to the 5th proof for the existence of God, when he talked about the governance of the world and how all things are being directed to an end. And if you figure you have kind of like this large world, and all things, like an arrow being shot to a target, are being directed to an end, and everything is choreographed, if you look at a big stage production and everything is being choreographed, you have to assume that there's one person ultimately who either wrote the choreography or is directing it, because one person has it in their mind. Now, there may be other people that are helping them out, but there's one person that's kind of directing all things to its end. And so Thomas says it doesn't make sense for there to be 2 gods directing all things to one end, because they would have to agree on everything, and if they agreed on everything, then they'd be the same thing, right? So it kind of makes sense logically that there'd only be one God. It doesn't make sense to have more than one. All right, and article number 4, the last one, is whether God is supremely one. And I have a picture of the Supreme Court there, just to be cute, okay? The Supreme Court. Is God supremely one? And yes, he is supremely one. So that brings us an end to all of the attributes of God, and I hope you enjoyed that. Did you see that we have somebody from Did you see Sheba?
Yes, I did. I said, welcome, Sheba. Sheba says, praise the Lord.
Do you know where Sheba's from?
No, I don't.
Do you think it's a female, Sheba?
That was my first thought, yes, but I
Okay.
could be very wrong.
I'm guessing that's not Sheba's real last name, Billy Graham.
Oh, yeah, probably not.
You know who Billy Graham
I know
is,
who Billy Graham
right?
was, yes,
Yeah, of
exactly.
course.
The revival
Yeah, no,
guy.
Sheba was on the Morning Joy show this
cool.
morning. Sheba
Welcome
is
back.
from India.
That's so cool. That would have been probably my first guess, but that's awesome.
Yeah,
I am
the Billy Graham part.
quarter Indian.
Yeah.
So.
I'm a quarter Finnish.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, quarter Finnish. So Sheba, great to have you with us. And I'm wondering, what time is it in India right now? It's got to be very late, or even
so.
morning time, maybe on Saturday. Yes, I'm in India. Okay. This is so cool, isn't it? Isn't technology amazing?
You know what we should
We're sitting
do,
there having
Dave,
a
is that
talk
we
with
should
somebody in India.
have...
What time is it in India right now?
We should have a competition each back to the Father. Who is the farthest from Irving, Texas?
Would
Who
Sheba
is the farthest?
get
Currently, Sheba is winning. So congratulations. We send you a virtual prize.
Okay. All right, Sheba.
We will pray for you.
You got the farthest away. And I wonder, Sheba, if I may ask you this question, how did you find out about Guadalupe Radio Network and our social media feed? Because, India is a long way away. In fact, I was talking to my friend Anand Bhimarasetti, and he said when he flies to India, it takes like a whole day. I mean, I think it might not all be one flight, but he said he said that's why when he goes to India, it's got to be a long trip because you lose, so to speak, several days just traveling because it takes so long to get there. And so let's see before we close out the show right now, 12:17 a.m.
Oh, wow. Late night.
Okay, so that's
awesome. Well, thank you so much for how far ahead?
Now, why
that's
would the minutes be different? Wouldn't it be 12:47?
I don't know. There's some weird time zones, I know. But I think I just looked it up on my phone too.
And
it's 12:17.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, so
they're 30
there's
minutes
a 30
off.
minute. Yeah, there's some places I want to say it might be in Europe or in that area. There is a really short time zone.
Okay.
Like it's not a full hour. So I think that's where that comes from.
And Sheba is now watching several of the Guadalupe Radio Network broadcasts. And
Awesome.
Sheba, how cool that
thank you.
that you're
Welcome.
there. I understand that there's one part of India that's predominantly Catholic. I think it's down in the south. I remember Diane Xavier used to tell me about this.
Yeah,
and
there
that
is.
Most of India is not Catholic. Most of it's Hindu. And so India time. All right. Is that okay?
Yeah.
As opposed to hammer time? Okay.
Stop. Hammer time. You never
See,
know what you're going
that's
to come
for you,
up from.
TikTok. Okay.
Yeah,
we
there you
did-
go. That's what TikTok joins right then. They're like, stop, hammer time, and do the dance.
All of a sudden, the TikTok audience just grew
See,
because
that's
I
what I told
said,
you, Dave. We got to do
hammer
the
time.
dances.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll incorporate that into the next
Got it.
next week. All right. That just about does it. I do want to throw it out there. If there's anybody who has any questions, if you have any comments, I do appreciate very much. I think it was kind of fun. I enjoyed the conversation. We do have, I don't know, probably at least 20, 30 people, I'm guessing, across all the platforms that are watching right now. So
We're including TikTok. We're well over 100, but
now that's stopping by at some point,
I don't
or
know.
how
I
does
don't
that
know.
work?
I honestly, I wish I could tell you, Dave. I don't have a TikTok. So
No, I'm looking at
Honestly, don't
Twitter X or whatever, and it says 14 views.
I
But
don't know if that's 14 views total or 14 at a time. I also don't know. Basically, my social media consists of Instagram and Facebook, and I
okay.
don't understand anything else. So,
Yeah, okay. Twitter, we don't understand you.
but you're great.
Yeah, we love you. Okay, but
You're
I don't know.
great.
I don't know if it's what exactly that's all about. Okay, well, it doesn't look like any questions are coming in, but we are
Mario says that we've had some bloopers in the last few minutes, probably when we did the hammer time.
bloopers. Okay, well, thanks, Mario. Always good to hear from Mario with the honest truth of what's going on, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, that's going to wrap it up. And I will tell you that if you're following the Summa sequentially, after he gets through the attributes, the very next question, which is really interesting, it's question number 12. And it's, can God be known by a rational creature? Okay, can we know God? All right, so what do you think? Do you think we can know God? And later on in the Summa, like question like number 33, It's, can we know the Trinity? Can we know about the three persons in God? He gives a very different answer to those two. And that'll be for another program. And I think we're going to be here next week. I think anything.
What is next week? Yeah,
next
we
week?
should be.
Nothing's precluding us for next week. So
the 9th of August. Yes, we shall be there.
all right. Wouldn't it be cool if Sheba, you know how many people are in India? Sheba's got, I mean, it's like a billion people in India, I think, something like that. So Sheba, if you could let your
Let
fellow,
every other person in India know to
we
listen.
could really increase the viewership if Sheba.
I always wonder, Dave. We've been doing this show for a very long time now. We've been doing it very, more consistently, and our production value has gone up. But I wonder if one day I'm not going to be able to keep up with the comments. You know?
Oh yeah.
One day.
Yeah, like
Make
you
my job
watch
hard.
you watch some of those things,
And they're just
you
like.
know, I remember I was watching a Trump rally one time, and there was so many people watching, and it went so fast that you can't even read it. I mean, the questions. You know, we don't have that problem quite yet, but we do appreciate everybody who did comment. And Sheba, great to have you there in India. We appreciate you listening to not only this program but also Morning Joy, and God bless you there in India. It's probably about time for Betty Bye, I'm guessing, if it's 12:30. So get some rest, and we will see you next Friday for the next Back to the Father program. Tell your friends about it, and thank you, Sissel. Thank you, everybody who was watching. God bless you, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for Back to the Father. And don't forget, the glory of God is the human person fully alive. If you have comments about the show, email Dave Palmer at grnonline.com.